As Sean said, embarrassingly so, I am Jim Hitt. I'm the CEO and founder of American IRA. When I listen to what he says about me, what I really hear is, you're an old guy, okay? And you've made a lot of mistakes and done a lot of things right, because you tend to do that over a period of years. As always, we have to do the disclosure. American IRA does not give investment advice. We offer guidance on the rules and regulations for self-directed IRAs and how to use them. You always have to have professionals, ultimately, because you are responsible for the decisions you make with your IRA. What we're going to do today is we are going to go through a vast amount of information. What I want you to understand is this is not a get-rich-quick afternoon seminar. Okay, this is actually, I am not a public speaker per se. I am a teacher or educator. So that's the way I see everything. The information is going to be in depth. I do not expect you to leave here understanding this information. That's why I am going to make sure you have the resources afterwards. But this is a resource class. You will know you will know more at the end of this day with the resources than I promise you 95% of the other self-directed IRA people, and/or in some cases real estate people in the environment. I absolutely promise that. We're going to talk about promissory notes, trust deeds. We're going to talk about mortgage investing. We're going to talk about raising private capital. Everybody wants to know how to raise private capital with unregistered securities. How to find investors and what you can or cannot do. Unrelated business income tax, which is a tax that is assessed against nonprofits at different points in time. We're going to discuss leverage or non-recourse loans in an IRA. We're going to delve into solo 401ks, which is the what I would call an IRA on steroids. It has so many powerful tools, particularly if you're self-employed, that you wouldn't even believe it. And we're going to talk about self-directed IRA-owned LLCs. There's a better known as checkbook control. We're going to go into great depth on each one of these subjects. It's not just going to be you can do it. This is exactly how it works and exactly how you do it, should you choose to do so. We are going to talk about, the first is going to be the brilliance of a plan. We are going to talk about, and this is when I put the brilliance of a plan, I was listening, I interviewed this particular investor, and I was going through this, and what I'm going to cover today with you is my desire to let you know that as complex as some of the subjects are that we talk about today, this is a simple business. Believe it or not, it is very, very, very simple. When you see the brilliance of the plan, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about how to be a blue-collar genius. How everybody would like to be a genius, right? I'm going to show you exactly how to do that today as it relates to literally any subject, but since we're talking about real estate, it's going to be as real estate and IRAs. We're going to go through the David G story. David G is one of our clients who took $6,800 and ran it to $293,000 in about 5 years. What makes the story so special is, in these case studies, is he did it with wholesaling, he did it with retailing, he did it with hard money lending. He did it in all aspects. It was not simply that he happened to go out get lucky and make one deal. You know, the palm trees in the back of the deal with the ocean in the back. It wasn't that. This was just good, solid real estate work. And that's largely what this presentation is going to be. It's going to be a lot of case studies. We're going to talk about the magic of a house. Okay? We're going to talk about the magic of the house because many people only see a house, and I want to share with you that it's anything but a house. We're going to talk about the hard money lender that went out and visited his property and there was nothing there. Okay? I thought that was an interesting story. And we're going to talk about George L., and that has to do with solo 401ks. Now, the question is, why are you here on a Saturday morning? Why do you need to know all this stuff? Well, I know why you're here, because you listened and you thought, well, this might be interesting. But more importantly, what you need to know is this. This was just in the news. It is being talked about as we speak. In the last 10 years, the middle class has lost their net worth. It's been wiped out. 20 years worth of gains. 20 years. The average net worth dropped by 28% from $129,000 to $93,000 in the last 10 years. That includes your personal or their personal residence. Lower income people have lost 45% of their net worth. 85% of the people say it is more difficult, and this is fresh off the news as of the writing of this presentation, is more difficult to maintain their standard of living. Income has dropped from from $54,956 to $49,487. So the actual earnings of the, in quotes, the middle class has dropped by a significant amount. In 1971, 61% of the American public was considered to be middle class. Now in 2012, it's 51%. So basically, what we're saying here is taking control of your future is a way for you to be a success, not a statistic. You end up secure instead. And the other nice thing about this is when you have this information, being part of a real estate group or a Rotary Club or having friends or whatever, you can pass on this information and let other people know too. You know, this is not just for you. There's so much business out there that, you know, you can tell by the ads and the meetings that there's just so many opportunities. I know Sean went through this earlier, but, and thanks to Sean actually, he brought me back around because I like talking about how to do the deals. And they're interesting, okay? They really are. Even when I look at them and I read them, they are very interesting. I interview people and stuff. But the transaction, the perception of the IRA investor is all about the transaction. It has nothing to do what you can do, all the money you can make. It really begins at the root level inside the office. So everything I talk about from here forward, all transactions follow this exact same mode, okay? Just so you know. That way you don't have to ask me when we're talking about unrelated business income tax or how to acquire a mortgage. Everything is the exact same way inside the office. It starts with the bi-direction letter. It tells us what the client is going to do, okay? Gives us the purchase details. It identifies the parties. Now, from a practical standpoint, this would not sound efficient, but we actually work with the attorneys and the insurance agents. And the reason that we do that is it was easier, as it turned out. We've been doing this for years and years. As it turns out, it was easier to talk to the attorney than to explain to the client that this is what we needed, because the attorney was specific to their state requirements as opposed to what the IRA needed. So it created a lot of angst for our clients. So we actually do that now for you. Okay. We do not, closing documents are prepared by the professionals. We do not prepare documents. The only documents we prepare are what we would call our CYA letters when you want to do something that is not necessarily to your benefit, but I don't want to participate in. Then you sign a CYA letter. That's better known as cover, okay?
Assets.
Cover your assets. Okay, we do not look at the documents. We only review it for vesting only. So you can have a thick set of documents. It can be this thick. We don't care, okay? What it says, other than the fact, does it allocate the proper verbiage and or vesting? So if it's a private placement, it's nice to see that there's an authorization to have IRAs. But as far as the vesting, we work strictly vesting. And that's the hardest thing we have to do, to make sure that when you close your asset inside your IRA, you actually own it. If it is not closed in the name of the IRA, I own it half the time or more, okay, in the name of American IRA. If you leave off these little things that the attorney says you don't need, like IRA or FBO, then that creates a problem. Now it's all of a sudden American IRA owns the asset, and you're not going to be happy with that, okay? And me neither. American IRA submits all documents that relate to transaction for client's approval. You sign everything and tell us what to do. We don't make decisions for you. And the nice thing about what we're doing here is, with this particular situation, is we actually do e-sign now. So when we have a set of closing documents, a HUD, whatever it is that comes through, private placement, it's scanned in, it's set up for e-signature, it goes out, comes back by e-signature, it's done. You don't have to scan it, You don't have to hunt it. You don't have to bring it back. Probably more than anything else that we've changed recently, that's one of the things that our clients appreciate the most. And everything is read and approved. We sign all documents. The one thing that to be a successful IRA investor is that you need to understand is the money in the IRA is not your money. The assets are not yours. They're your IRAs. It is a separate person. And when you understand that concept, it becomes very easy not to quickly sign the contract when somebody says, I want to buy your house. And we send the money for closing. So if you've done a real estate transaction, other than the fact that you're instructing somebody else to sign, or any kind of transaction, you can notice that it follows the same exact rules that you would outside of the IRA. So there's really no difference except that you're telling us what to do. I want to go into the brilliance of a plan. What makes this so special is its unbelievable simplicity. That's why it's so brilliant. And we're going to walk through this. And this is an investor. This is not an old story. This is a 2011, 2012 story, okay? Happening right now. And it's continuing to grow. Let me give you a little bit of background. This is a young couple. They just got married. They were married for about 5 months, and then they purchased a duplex to live in. Many people ask me when they're young, and I do remember that, being young. When they're young and they're just getting married, is that, you know, if you want to do something, you really want to be successful, don't buy a single family dwelling, buy a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex and live in one of the units. Probably, I tell that story, I can't even count the number of times when somebody is brand new in the business and the response is, I don't want to have tenants. I don't want to have somebody living next to me. I don't want to be knocked on the door. And you, either the husband or the wife don't have a desire to do that. So consequently, they run out and buy a single-family dwelling that costs them $1,300 a month, eating up their cash flow. Well, in this particular case, this particular investor took, it was my advice, because they weren't my client. So I could give them advice. They're real estate investors. Okay, so they bought this, and these are numbers around it. It's about $1,300 a month. They rent half of it for $850. And the other thing they had to jump over, and many of you will have this problem, is they had to pay pretty much retail. Still a heck of a deal, but they had to pay retail for the deal. Okay? A few $1,000s discount, maybe $10,000, $20,000, but in this environment, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. But it didn't really matter. It was a fabulous location, fabulous, and you can find something wonderful to live in. So now they're paying what? $450 a month for rent in the greater Charlotte area. This investor happens to be in Charlotte, the greater Charlotte area. $450 in rent, great area. Now where are you going to get that? Both work, and so they got that started. Then what happened next is what many people go through. This isn't just this particular investor, is they study, they listen. They're very cautious. They're very nervous, okay? No different than everybody else is thinking about investing in the real estate business. You know, that first leap sometimes is going to be extremely difficult. Well, it took them a while to get going, doing their analysis, sending out marketing material and letters, meeting with sellers and so forth. So then they were, what the simplicity of this is, they didn't go out and find, you know, 14 REOs that somebody wanted to sell dirt cheap. They went to what you would consider the Bible. They went to the MLS, believe it or not, and did their work. They checked their comps on Zillow, compared it with the county records, and they did weekend drives together. You have to have your spouse on board if you happen to be investing in the real estate. Either have them on board or have them completely out of the picture. There's no in between. Okay? There is nothing in between, because they have to be all in there. And when you're a young couple, you really need to have, or newer going to invest, you need to have them on board. Otherwise, what happens is you don't do deals. Okay? So their goal was to pay off the houses. The strategy is buy and hold. Very simple. There's nothing magic about this. Buy and hold. And by the way, Buy and hold, by definition, is you don't sell. That does not mean you don't exchange for bigger properties, or you don't sell and get 3 or 4 more properties, or you don't buy an apartment building. Okay? This particular investor took it literally. So you buy and never sell. Okay? And that's okay. You know, it's better to take that literally, because the only mistake I've ever made in real estate, and I'll share it with you right now, is selling anything. True story. Okay? They want to pay off the houses, and they want to make babies so the wife can stay home and take care of them. So that's their plan, and that's how they set up their ideas. Now, so far, nothing fancy, right? Everybody heard of the MLS, you've heard of Zillow, you've heard of county records, right? Here's what they did. They narrowed it down. They actually went out and did good old-fashioned real estate work. They went out and picked areas, they learned areas, and they picked about 6 farming areas. Nice farmhouse, but really what it means is you pick a section of town. They learned that section of town backwards and forwards. They picked a price point in today's marketplace where they said around 55% loan to value. Now, if you're listening to this on a CD or a DVD and you've never done anything to have anything to do with real estate, then that might sound, the question that may come up in your mind is, well, why would somebody sell at 55 cents on the dollar? Well, a vast majority of these transactions are either bank-owned or short sales, because so it's a distressed situation. And I think the most fascinating thing to me about this is that when you see the numbers on the fix-up expenses, I've never seen those at those prices, okay? I'm telling you the truth. You know, I'm in the $20,000 repair range, and this individual's in the $1,500 to $2,500 repair range and gets them on the market. So, and quite frankly, I don't exactly know how to tell you to get that other than just go out and look at the darn things. The other thing is, because there's so much competition, I asked him, I said, well, how did you get these properties? Why did they slip through? They were either poorly marketed, bad pictures, or the average investor looks at something and says, eek, it either stinks, well, or it's got animals, or whatever the case may be. Well, so what he's looking for, or they're looking for, was something to slide in between, like he mentioned, Sean mentioned in the presentation about the tax liens. He says, well, they were mismarked. Well, think about it like mismarked. You're looking for something in the MLS that's been missed by somebody else, and it does happen. And you're going to see how it happens here in a couple of minutes. These are REOs or short sales in most cases, and he typically would have 10 in the funnel, and on the next slide it says he made up to 100 different offers. So he jumped over one of the things that many of us have a problem, which is making offers. I will say to you that if you don't make offers, it's going to be hard to buy something. Okay? I don't play the lottery. It's unlikely that I will win. So, same situation here. And the other thing is the potential for long-term gain, meaning that we don't buy for appreciation today because we don't know when or if it's ever going to happen, but we do believe that it's going to come back in the next, umpteen or 2 years or whatever the case may be. So they're well valued, under market, and they did their diligence, okay? Once they learned the area, it became more comfortable. So the first one was a little bit more difficult, very, very low offer, got accepted. They checked the comps, and the other thing is, as was mentioned earlier, is the key number is, in fact, what will this rent for if you're going to have a long-term buy and hold strategy. You really need to know the numbers. So you need to not just know what is selling in the area, what's a good deal. You need to know what it will rent for. Now, I know many of you, this is very, very basic, but as I said, this is really a basics presentation disguised as what you will see as extremely complex transactions. But the basics do not ever change. At different stages of our life, we need different things. Young couple, this is a great strategy. I'm not interested in acquiring a bunch of houses and renting them for the next 20 years at this stage of my life. That's not exactly what I want to do. So we all have to pick what our strategy is. This one is, was picked for, as I mentioned. So with Zillow, they cross-checked it with the county records. Now, there's other online programs you subscribe to also, that depending on where you live, that also you can check these kind of deals. But a lot of times now in the counties, they have online resources. One of the things that I thought was fascinating about this is they went out and they would drive the neighborhood at 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. Okay? Diligence. What's happening at 6? What's happening at 10? If you got a bunch of parties on the sidewalks at 10, may not be the kind of residential neighborhood you want to invest in. You know, at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, if you have activity on there that doesn't look appropriate, maybe that's not an area you want to invest in. They did their diligence. And we're going to talk in depth about diligence. The other thing they did is they would check comparable homes, and they'd have to bore down to the retail sales to see if there's a retail sale. Right now, when you're doing comps, what you're going to get is you're going to get a lot of foreclosures and short sales and so forth. Well, those skewer the comps. They're obviously going to drive down the neighborhood price. That's where you want to be buying. But if you want to try to establish the value, you need to find that one or two retail sales that might be available. So that's where you put your focal point on where to buy, and then what is it I'm likely buying. And then the other thing you do is verify, of course, that what you can rent it for. Now, the other intuitive thing that was done is they put together a resume, to an extent, of how they have the ability to close. So they told the listing agents, they told their selling agent, the ones that buy, and they also let the wholesalers know that they have the ability to close. So they were working real estate agents, the real estate agents that they could get offers through. They were working the wholesalers via the groups like this. And you'll see how that paid off. They used private funds from an IRA to create the down payments, to create the purchase prices, and so forth. And in many cases, it was 100% of the acquisition price because they did such a good job on the numbers. The numbers were not in dispute. If you want your private lender to be sure and have faith in you and to trust you, don't fudge the numbers. Any private lender worth their salt is going to check you. They're going to check you like a TSA agent trying to get through with a bomb at Charlotte Airport. Okay? They're going to check you, particularly your first one or two deals. So you don't want to shortchange the analysis. Sean did a very fine job on that analysis of net operating income. It included maintenance. It included reserves. Most times it included 10% management, 10% vacancy. Most times what I see is presentations of properties across the internet or however I'm looking at it, and they 15% cap rate. Well, they kind of forgot management, maintenance, and vacancy. They kind of forgot capital reserves. They kind of forgot the fact that it needs $8,000 worth of work up front, which you can call a capital improvement, but you're not going to, if it's not financed, you've got to get that money back. So the bottom line is, when you look at it, it wasn't really 15%, it was like 7%, So that was a well done. So those analyses, the numbers are what the private lender is going to hang their hat on. The fundamental situation here is to build great wealth over a period of time. Now, how does that look? This was deal one. $55,000 our purchase price. $50,000 our purchase price, borrowed $55,000, $800 for the repairs. Now, I know $800 for the repairs for a house purchase with 1,400 square feet, 3 bedrooms and 2 baths via short sale sounds absurd. The source is absolutely irrefutable. Absolutely. I've never seen $800 worth of repairs in my entire life. I've been in this business for 40 years. I can't even walk through the house for $800. Okay? I don't know what it is. But I've never done that. So that was phenomenal to me. It was like, the deal's great, but how'd you get $800? You actually got a little cash back at closing, $4,200. Now, how did this all happen, and what does it look? The market value, $90,000 at the time of closing. $55,000 was the loan amount, so they have net equity of $35,000. Not fabulous. Okay? $35,000, that's good. It's wonderful. If you were to cash it out, it'd probably drop down. So you're looking at this thing, that's $35,000. Well, that other example had $28,500 in hard cash right now. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that hard cash right now. So we're going to see how that plays out in this picture, and you can kind of decide which you would prefer, to have this particular strategy or take a couple dollars as you move on. Second deal. This is still first deal. $55,000 at 8% amortized for 20 years, all due in 7. The rent on this property is $875 a month, and this person paid $50,000. Taxes, insurance. Now, I didn't go through as detailed of analysis on this as Sean did in his net operating, so excuse me, I don't have a lot of management maintenance vacancy. I'm just using the gross numbers. Do understand, I know that the actual net operating income is less than what this is, but I'm giving you the gross numbers, and but it does, we put in some vacancy in this one. He's netting $210 a month. First one, positive cash flow, no points. The reason that they got this property is there was a lot of bidding going on it, a lot of offers being made, but because of the marketplace, everybody was trying to re-steal the property. Okay, you know what re-stealing is? It's already a fabulous deal and it's not good enough. So it was on the market for, I guess, 50, they were offering 42 and 43. That's re-stealing the property. So sometimes as an investor, you've got to take a step back and say, I'd rather have the deal. It's a good deal. And suck it up that you didn't get $2,000 off, or you didn't get $5,000 off, or you didn't buy it. You're already buying it cheap, 55% loan to value. So they basically paid the asking price. Okay? This is the second deal. 1,600 square feet, and by the way, they're coming quicker now. The first one was October, the second one was February. So now the first one was the belt unloosening. The second one was February, 1,600 square feet house, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, Greater Charlotte area, $60,000 purchase price. Not bad. They borrowed $66,000, they got $4,500 at closing and $1,500 with repairs, and I'm still fascinated about that. Market value is $110,000, loan amount $66,000, so it's $44,000 in equity. By the way, I didn't add the cash at closing back in, okay? Because they don't take the money out and spend it, they actually leave it in their LLC, and they're buying it inside an LLC for operating capital and repairs and so forth. They got $4,500 in cash and instant equity of $44,000. That's deal 2. Within 90 days. Now we're up to about, what, $80,000 in equity? This one rents for $1,100 a month. Now the interest went a little bit higher on this one because the price of money goes up and the price of money goes down. It's just interest only for 8 years. Taxes, insurance, loan payments $495, $445 a month before management vacancy. $445 a month. And once again, private lender, no points, positive cash flow. And the key was with this is they know their market area. They don't have to go out there. And so and on Sunday night when they're making their offers, okay, the way they work their business is they go through the MLS, put together 10, 15 houses, 20 houses, whatever the market allows, shoot those out to their realtor. The realtor makes the offer. Okay? And they wait. So they're spending about 2 or 3 hours a week now in their business in terms of getting the offers out there. They found a good, friendly investor realtor. That's what you need in your group of folks. You need an investor-friendly realtor. Not a realtor, investor-friendly. Okay? You can't have a realtor who says, you can't offer that. If they say that, that's not an investor-friendly realtor. Okay. Little misspelling. Sorry about that. I saw that the first time around and I missed it. Know your market area weather, so if it's going to be raining or snowing, okay? Make sure that you know that in advance, okay? Let people know what you do and send your resume. Third deal, $56,000 our purchase price, $56,000 borrowed, didn't put any money down on this one. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, they closed in 14 days. The reason they could close in 14 days is they have a relationship with a lender that is willing to act in 14 days. So the relationship is what is important. So they're able to close and get this deal in 14 days. We're going to talk about how to find private lenders, how to build a relationship with them, and so forth. So don't disparage here. Repairs are $2,000. Now it's getting at least close to something that my mindset will understand. And $2,000 it cost them to close this deal. And once again, the purchase price does include closing costs, by the way. $90,000 market value, another $34,000 in equity. Here's the income, $1,000 a month. When in many times, and most times, it was said that if you could get 1% of the sales price, so if you had a $90,000 house, you get $900 a month in rent. That was a good market. In California, if we got 20 cents on the dollar for rent, we were doing good. Okay, so $1,000 a month rent, you know, would be a $300,000 house in California. Now, so they're getting numbers like $1,000 a month. So this is another $497 a month. Once again, I acknowledge management maintenance vacancy. No points, positive cash flow. And in this case, they had lots of bidders. So don't be afraid to compete. Just because you, in some of the strategies I'm going to teach you later, it's better to not be competing. But in a situation like this where you're bidding, don't be afraid to compete. They put out the bid. They were not the highest, but they could close the fastest. So it's not always about the price. So do you have the cash? How fast can you close? And this applies to whether it's a bank or in quotes, a seller, just a traditional seller. Fourth deal, by the way, first deal October, second deal February, third deal in March, fourth deal in July of this year. Just closed, okay, when I did this interview. Okay, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,600 square feet. Now this one, they had cash. The reason they have cash is because they are A, young couple, B, they have no bills, so they take good, solid care of themselves. 3, they have 2 working people, and they save money. And they bought a duplex instead of buying a $3,000 a month house payment out of the beginning, costing $450 a month to live. So this was not all magic. This is all developed. This is all part of a process. That's why the plan is so brilliant, because of its simplicity. So they bought this one for $65,000. They bought it for $70,000, $65,000 borrowed, $2,500 repairs. It cost them $7,500. And remember, they saved the money from the first couple of transactions that they got cash back. So really, they're into these things for pretty much as close to zero as you could get. Okay? In this particular deal, the loan amount's $65,000. So net equity is $55,000. Now we got instant equity of $55,000. This one's running for $1,100 a month. And these numbers are irrefutable. Absolute, period, dot. These are the real numbers. The only thing I did not do the real numbers on are the true net operating income to show the cash. $398 a month, mortgage payments $542. In this case, it's 10% interest only, balance due in 10 years. Okay? 10%. Now, who in their right mind would pay 10% for money in a 4% marketplace? Who does dumb things like that? You ask out on the world, and I say, this guy. Because look what he got. He got positive cash flow. He got equity. He didn't put a lot of money down, and it doesn't matter, the investor's making money and the private lender's making money. So it's not always the interest rate either. It's what comes out at the end. He could pay this all the way to the end, and it would never affect his outcome in terms of financing. He's got a choice. He could refinance his property. They've got good credit. They've got cash in the bank. They both have jobs. No problem. He could do that. However, then it goes on his credit, affects his debt ratio, and you're limited because as soon as the bank says no more loans, you're right back to where you started from. So it's, the interest rate is not irrelevant. It's just not as important as many people make it out to be. Okay, this is the summary. Once again, now look at this deal. I don't know if you guys think this is impressive or not, but I happen to think it is. In a little over, this is June, a little over 7 months, 8 months, this particular individual bought 4 investment properties, literally put dollars down, has a firm equity of 168 in today's marketplace. It's probably greater because the market is slightly recovering in Charlotte. Cash flow of $1,550 a month before management and vacancy. And they increased their net worth by $168,000. 8 months worth of work. Now, I don't see any reason a person couldn't do this, young or old, cash or no cash, if you follow the brilliance of the plan. And there is nothing fancy about that. This is what I call basic, solid real estate. And the particular person is a very conservative individual. This is not somebody that rushes out there and does things. I need to know about 20% of something before I'm ready to act. This particular individual and his family need about 120% before they act. So my point is that it doesn't take anything more than just moving forward and getting it done. Okay. Now, how does this number look? You know, you're thinking to yourself, $1,550 a month, that's chump change. Guy made $28,500 on the other example. $168,000? Not that great. I want to make millions. He made millions. He's already made the millions. He just has to wait for it to gestate. Okay? So you're thinking, well, I need more than that to live on. Let's talk about what all this means. This is what you need to know, and the reason I put this slide right behind the summary is take a look at these numbers. Let's see, let us review. What did $1,550 a month, right? At retirement age, the average Social Security check, I looked this up, is $1,230 a month. How much did the investor have? $1,550 before management and vacancy. So if he keeps it rented and manages himself, it is $1,550. Okay, if that's their job. Okay, $1,230. That's after a lifetime of work. This guy did it in 8 months. Average 401k at 55 years old is $69,127. What did we determine this was over there? $168,000 in equity. Have realistic goals. Understand what can be done safely, and you are going to make a lot of money in the real estate business. Listening to the palm trees in the back and the midnight TV is a quick way for disaster. Now, average net worth at 55 years old, 40% is $25,000 or less. 8% is 25 to 50. 12% is 50 to 100,000. 18% is $100 to $250,000. This person moved into the D category, which is 18%, in 8 months. He duplicated what they're going to earn in Social Security in 8 months. 22%, only 22% have a net worth in excess of $250,000. 78% of the American people have less than $250,000 to live on plus Social Security. Let me refresh my mind here. What did he get? $1,550 a month and $168,000. Look a little bit better? $250,000 gives you a whopping $5,000 at 2% in a 5-year CD today. And of course, we always have the backup retirement plan. We have the greeter at Walmart and the McDonald's clerk. So you can either pay attention to all these classes and these opportunities you have, or you too can qualify for one of these categories. Okay? Now, I put that slide back there because I wanted to just really drive it home, the brilliance of a plan. It is phenomenal. Self-directed IRA investing, is it safe? We're going to talk about that. One of the things that we, as an industry, the self-directed IRA industry, the real estate industry, upstate Korea, when they're talking about deals in their meetings, is you must do your own due diligence. Okay, we're going to get into great detail on this, but the other question I get a lot of is it safe? Is self-directed IRA investing safe? I can't say if it's safe. I don't make the decisions for you. You make the decisions. All I can do is tell you a couple of stories. The cash that we have in the account is FDIC insured at all times. The assets are always vested in the client's name. We went over that and the reasons why. American IRA for the benefit of John Smith IRA. FDIC insurance is not covering your asset when you buy a piece of real estate. If it was, we would have the corner on the self-directed IRA marketplace. Okay? All credit card transactions are certified by Security Metrics. Our accounting is by a top trust accounting system, and we maintain professional E&O and liability policies and criminal and the whole bit. So it's as safe at that point as it's going to get, but it's always ultimately about your decisions, what assets you put it in. If we disappear off the planet, the asset's vested in your name, you just take it to brand X and revest it in brand X. Same thing if brand X goes out of business, you revest it in our name. So it's always going to be your asset for your IRA. It's no different than doing another rollover. So it's probably as safe as you're going to get in any traditional environment that we're in right now. So I'll leave it at that as far as safety is concerned. But now it's control. The control issue is whether or not you are going to be safe in your investments. Now, Sean mentioned earlier that securities. I'm not a securities person, so you should be warned of that. I don't like things. I'm not a control freak. I am not a control freak. I'm definitely not a control freak. However, I have no control over securities. I do have a control over a single-family dwelling. Okay? I can rent it. I can pay it off. I can fix it up. Okay, whatever. It's mine. I know where the deed's at. You know? If I insure it, if it burns down, I can replace it. So I'm comfortable with that. So Mike over here and I in 2000 are chit-chatting. He says, I'm going to buy $100,000 worth of Washington Mutual stock. Anybody know who Washington Mutual is? Okay. And I said, no, I'm going to buy real estate. I buy $100,000 on a free and clear house in Atlanta. Okay? Or Phoenix, or Florida, or Las Vegas. Okay? I picked those areas for the obvious reasons. They happen to have gone down in value. During the last 12 years, I have netted $6,000 a year using Sean's example of $500 a month, net, 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 net. So that's $72,000. I've gotten 72% of my money back in 12 years. I still own the house. Anybody know what happened at Washington Mutual in the early 2000s? The biggest, the strongest, the best capitalized bank at the time in the country, the biggest bank failure ever. They went totally broke. Absolutely broke. So the $100,000 is now worth zero. I've gotten back $72,000 of my money. Mike made a bad investment. Mike's the real estate guy, by the way. So I picked it on him. He got nothing for his money, and I've still got the house, but I happen to pick Atlanta, which dropped by 60% of value. It's not worth $100,000 anymore. It's only worth 40. What does it matter to me? I'm renting the house, I'm collecting my $500 a month net operating income. And if anything, I'm collecting more because the marketplace in Atlanta, Phoenix, Florida, Las Vegas is such a hotbed of foreclosures, rents are going up. So not only did I make a solid investment, I got my money back. I don't care what the value is. I'm not going to sell. I didn't buy it to sell it. I bought it for cash flow. So that's the only story I can tell you about safety. Free and clear real estate versus securities secured by I don't know what. Okay? Now, do I wish I'd have bought Apple when Jobs came back? Sure. Okay? But I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that buys stuff. It's solid. That's the end of it. Okay? Okay. In the USA Today article, this is recent. Gosh, I mean, we're talking about less than a couple of weeks. The article says, USA Today says, investing in self-directed IRAs, too good to be true. I've told you what we can do. I've told you what you can do, and we're going to go into all the great and wonderful things, but unfortunately, I've got to go through a process with you that's going to say, ooh, this could be ugly because there are things that have happened, but I will also show you why they happen, how you can hopefully prevent them, and it's not exclusive to the self-directed IRA. Anybody ever heard of Madoff? Sanford. This is a quote from the Missouri Commissioner of Securities. Self-directed IRAs aren't bad, they aren't illegal. But scams involving self-directed IRAs are becoming more common. I know this, and you guys are going to know this by the end of the day, and I'm going to show you to a large extent how you can at least take a look at a project and say, do I want to invest in this? Social Security. We mentioned what you get at the end of $1,230 at the end of your retirement year on the average. Social Security is now upside down. Okay, it's upside down. You will now, as you pay in now, you will never get the money back that you paid. The early generation just flipped this year. You actually, I'm not going to give you the numbers, but it was several $1,000s. The people who paid in now are still going to get their money back, but going forward, you're not going to get your money back. You're going to put in thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're not going to get it all back. And so consequently, it is the ultimate Ponzi scheme until it is properly revamped, because we're all paying in, or actually Sean's paying in for guys like me and Joe to collect. Thank you, Sean. We appreciate it, buddy. Anybody else got really black hair in here? Okay. So the ultimate Ponzi scheme. Okay. How to be a blue-collar genius. I was looking at this situation and I said to myself, what is one of the failings that we have doing either deals or learning something? And so I don't have anything better to do. So I can't write anything beyond about three sentences because I'm not gifted like that. I happen to be a numbers guy, but I happen to be pretty good at headings. I thought, wow, that sounds like a genius. Maybe that's a blue-collar genius. How do you become a blue-collar genius? Here's a definition of my definition of a blue-collar genius. By the way, I didn't do these little cute graphics off to the side, but they are cute. The blue-collar genius is all of us who have mastered our craft with hard work, diligence, taking action, creating experience, making mistakes, and most importantly, never giving up. That's a blue-collar genius by my definition. How many times have you said, I'm smarter than he is? But he's driving the big Cadillac, and you're driving the little Toyota. How could that guy ever make any money? Thomas Edison said, genius is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. So we're going to get into what a blue-collar genius really does and how you can become a blue-collar genius and why you want to be. Sounds like a commercial, doesn't it? Lack of knowledge. That's one of the things which creates fear. Our investor, that took time, built knowledge and was able to take action. Now all of a sudden, $168,000 in equity and $1,550 a month. Most people are afraid to act. How many people do you know, don't raise your hands in here, how many people do you know that have been to every seminar? They know more about real estate than anybody you've ever talked to, and you say, how many deals have you done? Well, I'm still working on my first deal. How long have you been a member of the group? About 8, 9 years. But I'm looking. So knowledge is wonderful, but you have to actually use it. Okay? So in this case, lack of knowledge happens to be about investments. So we're going to hopefully jump over the hurdle here. Okay, blue-collar genius mistakes. This is how you stop yourself from becoming a blue-collar genius. You listen to the wrong people, starting with your family and close friends. This is a brutal statement, and I reread it several times depending whether I wanted to actually present it. Familiarity breeds contempt or lack of faith. Your family or friends have a different perception of you because they fail to see you for what you have become and remember you from your past or what you were. Okay? Now, not everybody's family, not everybody's friends. But I personally feel that if I don't get a little back feed from my family and friends, I'm not on the right track. Okay, that's my personal feeling, because I'm not outside of the box. If I'm inside the box, everybody agrees with me. If I'm outside the box, nobody agrees with me. So you can live inside the box, and what do you get? $1,230 a month, net worth of X, okay? Or you can get slightly outside of the box and start thinking about things in a different way. Okay, believing or setting limitations. I know you've heard a lot of this stuff before, but believing or setting limitations is where we break down in our deals. And some of the deals I'm going to show you, the reason I'm starting with this, I've never done this presentation before. I'm very, very excited about doing it. The reason that I decided to add this stuff in here is because ordinarily what I do in a presentation is grind out the hard facts. I've never put it together why or how it affects you. Okay, I know, because I've been doing this for so long, I just intuitively know. Well, I thought everybody else intuitively knew too. Well, Sean showed me that that's not the case. So a lot of this you can thank Sean for this material. He didn't think it up, but he gave me the inspiration to think it up, to say this is exactly how you do what I do and what other people do, okay, that are good at their craft. And I won't say successful, I'll say good at their craft. Accepting the status quo. My dad was a baker, I should be a baker. Well, you can be a baker and own 27 houses. It's okay. Doesn't mean it's not all or nothing. Lack of awareness of the subject you want to master. The brilliance of a deal, what made it so brilliant is everybody talks about doing a farm area. Very few people do it. Drive the area. So they mastered that area. They don't invest in Atlanta. They don't invest in Phoenix. They don't invest in South Carolina. It's not that they're not great areas. They invest exactly where they know. Call comes in, street address, we can do it. They know their area. They didn't know that overnight. They took the time to learn it. Lack of exposure. Learn what you do not know. How you like that? The old question is, well, if you're not here, raise your hand. Okay? It's silly. But if you think about this, what we're striving for is to learn what we don't know. And then we add that to our arsenal, and then we know more and more and more. I used to do this little, I found to do it. As a real estate deal, okay, some folks see a real estate deal that looks like this. Okay? We're just talking about a deal. It looks like this. Or in some cases, it's like that. But let's just assume you've got a little information and this is what you understand. Then pretty soon, as you become more aware of, as Sean mentioned, the tool belt, you start opening up the opportunities. And pretty soon, you know, the opportunities, now they look like this. Okay, you cannot open up a newspaper, you cannot talk to anybody without seeing a deal. It's tragic. Okay? So, consequently, if you get put on restriction by your wife, you can't even go look into real estate because you're going to come home with something. All right? That's never happened to me. She said, I want a house in Hilton Head, and I said, fine. Here's 7 of them, all great deals. Oh, I didn't want it quite that fast. Well, you shouldn't say anything. Not enough research, training, or education. The first thing I did when I moved to Asheville from California is I joined the local RIA. I was living in my motorhome at the time. I didn't even have a house. I wasn't even planning on staying there. The reason I joined the RIA, and any type of, if you're listening, if you don't know what a RIA is, it's a real estate investment group. However, there are other types of groups. You need to have some association with people of like-minded investors so you can get continuing education. The problem is when you don't have a flow of information, you have to work very, very hard to get it. So for a few hours a month, you can end up with education through the local real estate groups that will at least get you in the right direction. So otherwise, how are you ever going to know anything about investing? Beating the internet to death and learning yourself, if you don't have a basis of understanding, you won't even be able to interpret what they're saying on the internet. If you don't know what a substitution of collateral clause is, or subordination clause, and you look it up in the dictionary and it gives you a nice definition of it, now what the heck do you do with it? Now I know what it is. What do I do with it? How do I make money with it? How do I explain it? I know you guys all know that in here because you guys have been doing these lessons, right? No? You will before the end of the day. Accepting the first answer. Learn to ask questions to the 5th level. This is where you become a blue-collar genius. The 5th level, or more. All right. Example. Here's what I found out. Let me back up for a second. I don't want to talk too much about myself. It's not the deal. I don't have any particular talent, okay? I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't play a musical instrument. I am a terrible writer. I have stage fright. I didn't do a public talk until I was 50 years old. Okay, we're talking about a shy person who happened to get in the real estate business at 21. My idea of a crowd was more than 2 people that showed up to look at a house, like a mom and the 2 people, husband and wife. Now that, and I teach people to let everybody know what you do. I would sit at a bar, not a bar, but a bar at a coffee shop. I'd never talk to the person next to me. None of their business, okay? So here's the only 2 talents I happen to have. Talent number 1 is I could talk on the telephone, okay? Who knew? Okay, so I could talk people in. The other talent was recognizing my shortcomings. I was 21 years old. I did not like people, not at all. Okay, they show up. I knew I could deal with them for 90 days because that's all I used to take to close a house. So that was my 2nd talent. My 3rd talent, and this is where this came into when I got to thinking about this, and these were my only 3 talents. Now, I may have something else. I don't know exactly what it is, but my 3rd talent was this. I never accepted an answer. Who knew? So when they said the debt ratios for a HUD loan, I was doing a lot of FHAs at the time when I was selling, the debt ratio was a maximum of 38% or 39% of the back end. It must be 22% of the front end, whatever it was at the time. 28%, I guess it was, 28, 38. That was conventional. FHA at the time was a maximum of 40 and a 30, 31 on the front end. Now those are the numbers that you would standard to get. I looked at this deal, nobody fit that. Looked at the deal, nobody fit this. So I spent my time at the loan company asking more questions than they had answers for. So now I know exactly how to get them to 43.5% in 1972 or 74. Okay, I know exactly how far I can stretch on the front end. I know all the mitigating circumstances that you can possibly know to get a deal put together. It's all because I asked questions, and I never believed anybody. I always accepted what they said, but I went and verified it with somebody else. So the reason I'm telling you this is when you're done today, you're going to have a vast amount of resources. This is not the end-all to be-all. This is not something that's going to, every single thing is covered. It's pretty extensive. But what you're going to have is you're going to have a basis for asking more questions. I would expect you to verify this stuff on the internet, find out if I made mistakes. If I did, I'd appreciate an email. Find out how you can do all these things, confirm with other people, and pretty soon you'll be a blue-collar genius. So that was my only talent, for God's sakes, okay? So I got to thinking about that, and so here's what it is here's the question. This came up the other day, and this is what really struck me. This was really recent thought, because I knew this presentation, and the question to me was at the top. As a loan administrator, I said, can I make a loan to my cousin from my self-directed IRA? The standard answer is yes. If you read the regulations and the rules, it says you can do that. Now let's look at the questions. Now this is a blue-collar genius, or really drilling down to the questioning. Okay? Okay, what is your business relationship? Do you own property or businesses together? If you do, you may be a prohibited transaction. You may not be able to make a loan to them. That's question number one. Question number two, are you married to your cousin? Alabama. I was thinking either Alabama or Kentucky. Okay? Have you adopted your cousin? You cannot do loans to your children, to your wife or your cousin. Okay? I said that on purpose, by the way. Is the cousin married to your son or daughter? Maybe it's a third cousin, and it's mainstream California, San Francisco area, something like that. Is your cousin a guardian of your IRA or your beneficiary? Or your guardian or an IRA beneficiary? Now, how many people would even consider those questions? Now, pick any subject that you choose. And the last one is this could be a very logical one. Is your cousin an attorney, CPA, or financial planner who provides services to your self-directed IRA and has or does receive compensation? That would make them a prohibited person. Okay? Now, when you learn a question like that to at least the 5th level, then you too will be a blue-collar genius, and you will know more than everybody else, accepting and limiting your growth. Jim Hitt says, blank. I say, wonderful. Let's find out what Mike says. Let's find out what Paul says. Okay? We don't want to know what Jared said, but we do want to know what Paul said. Okay? So that's how you really get to understand a subject matter. Realtor says it's a great area. We'll go out there at 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. and find out. Okay? Check the crime statistics. Now, you're moving forward. You will be a blue-collar genius. It is simple. When you know more than other folks, you have an edge and are an expert. Okay? By definition, I didn't start out to be an expert, but I'm sitting here in front of you. I am an expert. Okay? Okay? I know more about self-directed IRAs than you do. I will challenge you on that particular subject. I feel confident saying that on tape. Now, how did I get there? Well, I studied the damn thing. I study it every day. I go out there. If I have any inkling, and I pay a service, so I use them freely, and 99% of the time I'm validating what I know. The other 1% I'm thinking, oh, maybe there is some way to do the deal, because I'm you guys. I want to know, how can I do that deal? It's no different than what I was when I was 21 years old. So consequently, ask questions. Do not accept the deal, the final verdict, until you are comfortable. And once you get the answers 3 or 4 times with consistencies, then you can assume that it's probably correct. How many times have you gone to an attorney? One attorney says one thing, another attorney says something else. Another CPA says one thing, another CPA something else. So how are you going to make an informed decision until you can get a consensus? Someday, you just have to sit down and say, it's a business decision and I'm going to make it. Okay, what time is it?
11:43.
What?
11:43.
Oh, okay. We have time for a couple of more couple more. We'll break at noon. Okay, I'm going to break at one of these slide points. I don't know how long it's going to take. Each one of these will take. Okay, how to find investors. Private money. I actually moved the one to the appropriate section. Private money. We talked about private money and the brilliance of a deal. Now, when you're looking for private money, it is not an art. It's a fairly simple process. But here's some of the benefits. You can get it generally with no points, as opposed to a hard money lender, which will generally charge you points. No payments in some cases, particularly if it comes from an IRA. If you need a 1-year loan, 2-year loan to do a rehab, and you're willing, and the investor says, I don't need the cash flow because it's in my IRA, I'd rather have an extra 1 or 2%. Great. I'd rather not make any payments until the house sells. I don't generally feel like you can get those kind of terms from a bank. You set the terms with the private lender, not the bank. Generally, there's no personal credit required, no credit check. Now, generally, I said, not always. No personal guarantees. Banks require personal guarantees. Private lenders generally don't require personal guarantees, generally. And what did I say about asking questions? So you say, well, is that always the case? No, it's not always the case. I can name 7 reasons that you would get a personal guarantee. However, generally, at the root level, the top level, you don't have personal guarantees. Can get dollars up front from funding for expenses. So in the cases of the brilliance of a plan, you notice a couple times there was some cash up front to cover the expenses. Now that just happened. I want to tell you that wasn't something that was set out to do. It wasn't pre-planned. It just so happened that the deals were so powerful that it worked out. Okay, they were so solid. It's not always the case. Many private lenders, they'll say, no money up front. Many will say, I'll loan 100% as long as the loan to value is 50% or less. If it goes over that, you got to come in. It's really a matter of negotiation with you and the lender. But the nice thing about it is you're dealing with an individual who can make the decision right then and right there, or as close to right then and right there as you can. You're not worried about a bank making a decision. Now, I mentioned family and friends, so in a very negative context. However, family and friends are in fact people you would identify as prospects to find private lenders. But I had a gentleman come up to me maybe 3 weeks ago, and he says, I'm trying to get private money. I've borrowed private money from other people, but my brother-in-law has $500,000 sitting in an IRA, and he won't loan it to me. That's, by the way, that's what got me to thinking about the reasons why, you know. And he says he just won't. And so, consequently, everybody's not going to loan you money. They're not, okay? But it's a conversation. So you get the conversation started. You open the conversation with them, introduction letter, a profile is always good. Set up a one-on-one appointment. This is get a commitment if the commitment's available. And you're not really begging, you're not selling, you're not chasing, because keep in mind that most accounts, as Sean mentioned, are in fact not performing right now. You could have $500,000 in there. It's the same half you had in 2000. And you feel real happy about getting it, and you're getting 0.5% on your money. So a well-secured 55% loan to value on a real piece of real estate that's a first mortgage at 6 to 8 or 9%, it should be a very attractive investment, providing that you make them feel comfortable. What do you think that most private lenders want to know? Am I going to get my money back? I'll save you the trouble. Yeah, 9% is great, but what about my $100,000? How do I know I'm getting that back? Because the 9% means nothing if I lose $100,000. It takes 11 years to make that up at 9%. On the other $100,000 you still have, and you lose all the compounding effect, okay? So private money guidelines, you cannot solicit lenders by mail. Okay, this is a violation. You need to move them from cold to warm relationship. Some of this stuff, I'm going to tell you who I got some of this material from. so you can follow up on it if you want to at the very, very end. You set up, the other thing is, if you have private lenders currently, set up a meeting with your private lenders, and when you're talking to them, it's a great time to ask for referrals. You send them a payment on the first of the month, you're right on time. John, did you get your payment? Yeah, great. How's everything going? Great. You know anybody else who would like to get a nice consistent return on their money? No, not this week. Well, keep us in mind. That kind of thing. Referrals. This sounds silly, but let me ask you a question. If you had one lender, and you asked that question 2 or 3 times over a period of 4 or 5 months, and got a second lender that might have had $1 million, who was just waiting to see how this guy did with you, would it be worth asking more than once? Okay? Sending out annual statements of investment performance, you know. I did the research on this program about some of these startling statistics that you may or may not have heard, but think about it like this. The stock market went up 1.2% last year. Commodities dropped by 412% this last year. Your investment made 9%. Okay? So it's like a little statement, just a statement of fact. Now, you can be as fancy as you want to. I'm just giving you some fundamentals. Be professional and put together a great package. And this is the minimum. This is the minimum. Appraisal, title insurance, fire and liability insurance, copy of the note and deed of trust or security deed or the mortgage. That's your minimum. It should include also pictures. It should include a map of the area. Make it a professional package, okay? So that the investor knows they're dealing with somebody, or the lender knows they're dealing with somebody that is thorough. Would you rather deal with somebody that is thorough or somebody that is sloppy? Who makes you feel warm and toasty? Okay? Private money guidelines continued. Obtaining private loans is a process of gaining the lender's confidence and proving their ability as a successful investor. And the second line, it says, many investors believe they are entitled to borrow money. These people usually fail. Here's what we get approached on a lot of times. And if anybody's done this in here, sorry. Here's the situation. We cannot tell you who these people are. We know where there's millions of dollars. We cannot tell you, no matter how many times you ask. We do have client mixers, which allows people to get together and talk about their haves and wants, and we do a deal. Now, at these client mixers, people have needs and they have money, and sometimes they have both. What happens when you show up in a room with people and they want to borrow your money? Okay, now, are you standing up there and saying, hey, everybody in here is, I've got $1 million alone, write me your deals. Now, most of those people are sitting back, looking at the situation, analyzing you and the room and the deals, and they want to, 2 things. They want to know, do I want to do business with this person, and am I going to get my money back? Okay? So if you walk up to somebody, successful investor is professional, respectful, provide proof of their ability or background. If you don't have a background, at least your ability. Okay? We have an early exit police. Professional, a background where you've done deals. What you're really going to be is selling yourself at that point. Your education as to why do you think I can find a house that's under market. So things like that. It's going to be a little bit harder to sell. I acknowledge that, but that's where you get into relationships and building trust. And the last line up here, I just wrote this out. Just think about it in terms of this. Okay, I would guess that when you when you met your spouse, you entered into an exploratory period to see if you wanted to do business with each other. Can you imagine meeting somebody at an event and deciding you wanted to marry them and open the conversation with, hey, babe, let's get married? What do you think the success rate would be? Well, you're eventually going to get somebody to say yes, but it may not be the person you want. So consequently, and the flip side is if you happen to be female, you just don't run up and say, hey, handsome, marry me. So By the way, it's never happened to me. Either undesirable or not handsome. I don't want the answer to either one of those. But anyway, so just think about it like that. It's a romance period. You got to really, you know, even though you're offering a heck of a good opportunity, you know, be respectful. Don't just say, hey, if you have money, stand up in this room. You know? That's my 2 cents. And this might be a good time to stop. Where are we at in terms of time?
5 minutes.
Okay, you want to take a break now and be back at 1? Yeah. That's good. I'll take questions until I leave the room if you want. That's a good time to ask, because I know everybody's going to lunch. The question is, how are the balloon payments going to get paid off? Yeah. At the end of that 10-year period of time, what you're going to have is you will, in fact, have, of course, a balloon payment for $60,000 for round numbers, let's say. Well, they have options. Number one, they can sell the house. In 10 years, we should have recovered. You should have easily enough money to sell the house and cash out, providing they don't want to just hold on to the house. They could do an exchange out of it, which is selling the house and doing a tax-deferred exchange. They could refinance the property at the time. Even today, as we speak, you can get non-owner occupied financing. You just have to be able to qualify. Okay? So today, you can do that. So those are just 3 quick strategies. The other thing is, if
they could refinance with the same investor.
Refinance with the same investor.
Or with a different private investor.
Yeah, there you go.
They wanted to buy and hold strategy, right?
What Joe mentioned was you could refinance with the same private investor and or a new private investor. So there's a lot of alternatives. And I would say that if the investor is getting 10% and they're not getting 10% someplace else to get their money, many people will roll it over. So those are just some ideas. And the loan-to-value ratio at that point is going to be so low, you know, you could...
Think about it from a private investor's point of view. You don't want to put your money out there for 30 years. You don't know what's going to happen. So a lot of times with these private investor loans, you'll see them on shorter time periods, 5 to 7 to 8 years, only because the deal being certain.
No, I get that. It's just from the other perspective, that they have to pay it off.
Or the others, they sell one and pay off 2 others.
Yeah.
But they wanted to buy and hold strategy, right?
Yeah, well, there's the buy and hold strategy, but as I mentioned, there's some flexibility because they took it literally. So there are people that maybe don't have that buy and hold strategy, would sell one, pay the taxes, and pay off 2, so now they've got a free and clear property, a couple of free and clear properties.
A big part of that is you look at it, as Jim was saying, if you get tied into a decision like that, ultimately, if say you want 20 houses at the end, in the middle somewhere, you may have 40. You know you're going to buy some that you're going to keep for a short period of time and sell off to either pay off other properties or just for the cash or whatever. You know, it's not you buy 20 and hold 20. You may buy 40 and sell 20 and keep 20 at the end.
Did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a progress where you want to end up with 20, and as Joe mentioned, you may buy 40 and sell off some to get them free and clear at your designated time. Great, great, great feedback. Food is out there or questions are in here. Your choice. Thank you, guys.